The private dining floor was already closed when Olivia arrived with her tray, and the manager's hand was already on her elbow, steering her like she was a problem he couldn't afford to mishandle. The room had been booked out by one name, one credit line, one quiet phone call that made everyone on staff move faster and speak softer. Security stood in places where security never stood. Two men in dark suits were posted near the elevator. Another waited by the bar with his hands folded like he was praying for patience. Olivia kept her face calm, but her breathing had shortened. She had worked luxury tables for 3 years, long enough to know the difference between rich and dangerous. This felt like dangerous wearing expensive fabric. Table 9. The manager said in a low voice that did not match the cheerful music coming from the speakers. You set water, you set bread, you take the order if he speaks to you, and you leave. Do not make it personal. Olivia adjusted her grip on the tray. Her fingers were dry from sanitizer and nerves. She nodded once, not trusting her mouth to cooperate. A hostess slipped past her and whispered, almost to herself, "That's Christian Wolfe." The name landed hard, the way a name did when people repeated it with fear instead of admiration. Olivia had heard it before, mostly in the kind of conversations that stopped when someone walked into the room. Chicago had plenty of powerful men, but Christian Wolfe was the kind who didn't need attention. He had it anyway. Olivia moved through the doors with the tray balanced at shoulder height. She anchored herself on the routine. Steps measured, shoulders steady, eyes down until the last second, then up to read the table. Christian Wolfe sat at the center like the room had been built around him. He was in his early 40s, tall even while seated, with a stillness that made the candlelight feel nervous. His suit was dark and simple. No flashy watch. No show. His face looked calm in the way storms looked calm from far away. He did not look at the menu. He looked at Olivia. Not in a warm way. Not in a hungry way. In a slow, searching way that made her feel as if he already knew the shape of her life. Olivia set the water down first, then the bread plate, then the wine glass. Her hands were steady until she reached for the bottle. The silence at the table stretched. One of the guards shifted his weight, the subtle sound of leather against fabric. Christian Wolfe kept watching her. Olivia felt her pulse climb into her throat. She poured carefully, the stream thin and controlled, but her wrist tightened at the wrong moment. The bottle angled too fast. Wine slipped over the rim. It spilled across Christian's hand and down his sleeve, staining his cuff in a dark, spreading bloom. The room went rigid. Olivia froze with the bottle midair. The guard nearest the bar took one step forward. The manager's face drained color across the room as if someone had pulled a plug. Christian Wolfe looked down at his sleeve, then back up at Olivia. He did not raise his voice. He did not curse. He reached for his napkin and wiped his hand with slow, deliberate care, as if he were teaching the room how to breathe again. Olivia's mouth opened. An apology was already forming, but Christian spoke first. "Olivia Parker," he said, clean and certain. "You didn't even know you were placed on a table." Olivia's grip tightened on the bottle. Her shoulders pulled back like she'd been struck. She had not introduced herself. No one at this table had asked her name. "I think you have the wrong person," she managed, and her voice was steadier than she felt. Christian set the napkin down. His eyes held hers without blinking. "Your brother's name is Jake Parker. He signed your identity into a debt ledger at my casino 2 nights ago." The words turned the air heavy. Olivia's expression changed in small steps, not dramatic, just real. Her lips parted. Her eyes flicked once toward the manager, then back. She swallowed as if her throat had stopped working. "My brother doesn't." "He wouldn't," she began, then stopped because the sentence didn't even convince her. Christian's gaze stayed level. "He already did." Olivia's face warmed with humiliation, not because she believed him, but because she felt the room listening now. Even behind closed doors, shame traveled fast. The guards stood like statues. A server near the hallway paused, pretending to adjust silverware while watching. Olivia lowered the bottle to the tray with careful control. She forced her hands to stop shaking by flattening her palm against the tray's edge. "I didn't sign anything," she said. "I don't gamble. I don't go near those places. I work here, I go home, I pay bills, and I clean up after people who act like money means manners." The last line slipped out sharper than she intended. She saw it land. Christian Wolfe's mouth did not move, but something in his eyes shifted, as if he had filed that detail away. The manager stepped forward, voice tight. "Mr. Wolfe, If there is an issue, we can handle it privately. Christian raised one hand without looking at him. The manager stopped mid-step like he had been yanked by a collar. Christian's tone stayed quiet. Lock the floor. The guard nearest the elevator turned, spoke into an earpiece, and within seconds the doors behind Olivia clicked with a sound that made her stomach drop. Olivia's eyes snapped to the exit, then back to Christian. She did not run. She did not beg. Her jaw tightened like a brace. Christian reached into his inner jacket pocket and slid a thin folder onto the table. It landed softly, but it felt like a gavel. He opened it and turned it so Olivia could see without stepping closer. A printed contract. A copy of a driver's license. Her license. Her address. Her employment listed right there in black ink, like she was a product with an attached label. Olivia's chest rose sharply. She didn't touch the papers. She stared, and the staring turned into a slow shake of her head. That's not. I didn't, she said, and her voice broke on the second word. Christian watched her the way he had watched her pour wine, with the same patience and the same control. You didn't sign it. Your brother did. He used your information because he had it, and because he believed the right name could delay consequences. Olivia's eyes flashed. Delay consequences for who? Christian didn't answer immediately. He looked at his stained cuff, then at Olivia again. For him. The manager hovered near the doorway, sweating now, hands half raised as if he wanted to help, but didn't know how to help without angering the wrong person. Olivia noticed and felt the humiliation deepen. She was being discussed like she wasn't fully human. She lifted her chin. If Jake did this, you should go after Jake. Christian leaned back slightly. The chair barely moved. I will. Olivia's shoulders loosened by a fraction, then tightened again as his next words landed. The debt still exists. Olivia blinked. It exists for him. Christian's voice stayed even. It exists in my world. If I let it vanish because you look innocent and speak well under pressure, my world changes in a way that costs lives later. I don't do softness in public. Olivia's lips pressed together. Her eyes became wet, but no tears fell. She kept her control through stubbornness, the kind she had learned early. Christian studied her for a moment, then made a small gesture with 2 fingers. The guard by the elevator stepped forward and held out a phone. Olivia understood without being told. The manager's phone. The staff phones. No one was calling anyone. No one was saving her with a quick text. Christian spoke again, quieter now, almost conversational. You have 72 hours to cover the debt. Olivia let out a short sound that wasn't a laugh. 72 hours. I make $600 a week if tips are good. Christian's face stayed still. Then you understand the problem. Olivia's nostrils flared. She stood straight, hands at her sides, posture tight. So what do you want? Because you didn't come here for money you already know I don't have. Christian's eyes held hers with that same disturbing focus. I came here to confirm who you were. Olivia's stomach twisted, and for the first time she looked away. She looked at the stained wine trail on his sleeve. She looked at the guards. She looked at the locked door. Then she looked back. Christian opened the folder again and slid out a second sheet. Simpler, typed cleanly, no signature at the bottom yet. There is an alternative. Olivia did not reach for it. Say it. Christian's voice stayed controlled. 3 months. You move into a protected residence. You appear with me at certain events. You do what you are told in public, and you speak honestly in private. You remain safe. Your brother remains alive long enough for me to deal with him properly. The debt is covered through labor, not cash. Olivia's expression hardened. That sounds like a cage with good lighting. Christian's eyes narrowed slightly, not angry, more like he respected the bite. It is a structure. A cage would imply I enjoy keeping people trapped. I enjoy predictability. Olivia's shoulders lifted with a tense inhale. You expect me to say yes to living under you because my brother is an idiot. Christian didn't look away. I expect you to protect yourself. Your brother already put you in motion. If you leave this building tonight and pretend you never met me, other people will still come looking. Not because they care about debt, because you are now a weakness with a face. Olivia's jaw clenched. You're the one making me a weakness. Christian's gaze sharpened, but his tone stayed calm. I am the one telling you the truth before it gets you hurt. Olivia's fingers curled, then relaxed. She forced her hands open. Her eyes went distant for a second as she did quick math that wasn't only about money. It was about rent due in 9 days, her mother's calls that she avoided because her mother always asked if Jake had gotten his life together, and the memory of her father's shaking hands at a kitchen table years ago, promising he had quit gambling while hiding another bill under a newspaper. Olivia's voice came out lower. My mother doesn't know Jake is back to this. Christian's face stayed unreadable. She will know soon. Olivia swallowed. My father ruined our house with gambling. Jake watched it happen and swore he would never be that man. Christian held her gaze. People swear things when they are young. Then they get scared, and they start trading their vows for relief. Olivia's eyes flashed, but the anger shifted into something else. She looked past Christian for a second, like she was seeing her brother's face the last time he asked her for a small loan, promising it was for groceries. She turned back. If I accept your deal, there are rules. Christian's brow lifted slightly. Speak. Olivia kept her chin raised. No touching to prove a point. No humiliating me in public. No using my family as a threat. You want me present? Fine. You want me silent and obedient? Not happening. Christian's gaze held hers, and the room felt smaller. A man like him did not get rules from other people. Olivia didn't blink. Christian nodded once, slow. Agreed on the touching. Agreed on public humiliation. Your family becomes relevant only if they create risk. Olivia's mouth tightened. That's not a full promise. Christian's voice stayed calm. It's the honest one. The manager shifted near the doorway, as if he wanted the conversation to end because the air was too sharp. Olivia heard him breathe and hated that she was being witnessed at her weakest. She looked at the contract again. Not the paper. The idea of it. 3 months, she said. You clear the debt after. You make sure my brother isn't harmed as long as he cooperates with whatever you're doing. Christian's eyes held hers. He will be alive long enough to face consequences like a man. Olivia flinched, barely, then steadied herself. And you keep your word. Christian leaned forward slightly and placed a pen on the table. I keep my word because I don't survive otherwise. Olivia reached for the pen, but her hand paused. She looked at the wine stain on his cuff again, and the absurdity of it pressed into her chest. This had started with a shake in her wrist. Now she was bargaining for her life. She signed. The ink dried fast. The room exhaled slowly, even the guards. Christian picked up the paper and slid it back into the folder. He stood, and the movement drew every eye. He didn't tower over Olivia in a dramatic way. He simply occupied space like he was used to owning it. Finish your shift, he said, that Olivia's eyes widened. You're leaving me here. Christian's tone stayed even. I'm not punishing you. I'm giving you the dignity of finishing what you started. A car will be outside at midnight. You will be in it. Olivia's throat worked. She nodded once, not trusting her voice. Christian took one step, then stopped. He turned back slightly, eyes on her face. You kept your posture when you were afraid. That matters. Olivia held still. Her hands were clenched behind her back, but her shoulders stayed squared. Christian walked out without another word. The elevator doors opened for him like a command. The manager rushed toward Olivia the moment Christian disappeared, voice frantic. Olivia, what did you do? What did you say to him? Olivia looked at her tray. The wine bottle sat there like a quiet witness. She didn't answer the manager. She didn't explain. She simply picked the tray up again, steadied her grip, and returned to work because that was what she had always done when the world tried to swallow her. But every few minutes, her eyes went to the clock. Midnight was coming. Outside the building, the black car would be waiting. And for the first time that night, Olivia's control slipped in a small, private way. She stepped into the service hallway, pressed her palm to the cool wall, and breathed once, slow and careful, as if she were teaching herself how to stay standing. Back in the private dining room, the manager was already whispering to staff about what they had witnessed out on the street below. Christian Wolfe sat in the back seat of his car with his stained cuff exposed, watching the restaurant windows as if he were watching a life he wasn't supposed to want. His driver asked a question softly, not daring to look back. Was she the one? Christian's answer was quiet. She was. He adjusted the cuff once, then let his hand rest still. The car remained parked, engine humming, while the minutes ticked down, because the deal had been signed. But the real conflict had only started. Olivia was not his type of weakness. She was the kind of person who made a powerful man feel seen. And that, for a man like Christian Wolfe, was more dangerous than any debt. The residence overlooked Lake Michigan. a glass tower rising above the city like something that refused to bend. Olivia stepped inside that night carrying one small suitcase and a silence that felt heavier than luggage. The lobby staff greeted her with quiet respect, not curiosity. Her arrival had already been explained. Christian Wolfe did not welcome her at the door. He waited in a private sitting room upstairs, standing near the window with the calm posture of a man who expected obedience without asking for it. Olivia entered and placed her suitcase near the wall. She did not sit. She did not lower her gaze. She stood in the center of the room as if drawing a line with her presence. Christian turned toward her slowly. His sleeve had been replaced. The wine stain was gone. "You may choose your own room," he said in a controlled tone. "No locked doors. No restrictions on movement inside the building. Security exists outside, not around you." Olivia nodded once, studying him carefully. "Then we understand each other. I am here because of a contract, not because of fear." Christian's expression remained steady, yet something in his posture softened by a fraction. Fear is inefficient. Cooperation lasts longer. That first night set the rhythm of everything that followed. The days developed structure quickly. Mornings began with quiet breakfast meetings where Christian reviewed schedules and expectations. Olivia learned how to sit beside powerful investors without shrinking, how to respond to personal questions without revealing private truths, how to carry herself in rooms built to intimidate. He corrected her posture with precise instruction. He adjusted the angle of her chair during formal dinners. He taught her how silence could control a conversation better than arguments. He never touched her carelessly. When proximity was required, he announced it first, giving her space to accept or refuse. The restraint created tension stronger than force. Olivia resisted naturally. She questioned his decisions. She challenged his tone. She refused to perform admiration for guests who treated her like decoration. Their disagreements were controlled but sharp. During one private rehearsal for a charity event, Christian repositioned her hand on his arm and said her posture weakened the image they needed to project. Olivia withdrew immediately. "I am not part of your branding," she told him, voice steady. Christian held her gaze. "You are part of the agreement. Strength must be visible." She studied him for a long moment. Then she repositioned her hand exactly as instructed, not submissive, but deliberate. "Strength is visible now," she said quietly. Something in his expression shifted. He gave a small nod. The lesson ended there. The public appearances created constant proximity. Car rides stretched in heavy silence, while city lights moved across the windows. Shared dinners extended longer than necessary because neither ended the conversation first. They spoke about neutral things at first: architecture, music, the strange rituals of wealth. Gradually, fragments of their histories surfaced. Olivia spoke of growing up in a cramped apartment above a laundromat, where her mother worked double shifts and her father promised change after every lost paycheck. She described learning early how to count every dollar and how to protect her younger brother from their father's temper when gambling debts arrived at the door. Christian listened without interruption. His response came days later during a quiet drive. "My father trusted people easily," he said. "He built partnerships based on belief. Betrayal destroyed him faster than illness." He did not explain further. He did not dramatize the memory. The way his voice tightened around the word betrayal explained enough. Their wounds met without apology. Weeks passed. The arrangement began to look convincing to the outside world. Headlines described Christian Wolfe as increasingly grounded. Business rivals softened their public tone. Social circles accepted Olivia as a permanent presence beside him. Inside the residence, small changes appeared. Christian began asking her opinion during strategic discussions. He listened when she described how staff reacted differently to his silence versus his speech. He allowed her to decline events when exhaustion showed in her posture. Olivia noticed details about him as well. The way he paused before entering crowded rooms. The way he dismissed harsh decisions when quieter alternatives existed. The way he never raised his voice, even when anger was visible in the tension of his jaw. The power difference remained. But respect began to grow in its shadow. The turning point arrived quietly. One afternoon, Olivia visited her brother Jake at a rehabilitation facility arranged through Christian's network. Jake looked thinner, ashamed, sober for the first time in years. He avoided her eyes until the truth slipped out in broken sentences. The debt was already paid, Jake admitted, voice trembling. He cleared everything the night you signed. He never needed the contract. The words struck harder than any threat. Olivia returned to the residence before sunset. She found Christian alone in his office reviewing documents. The city reflected across the glass behind him. She placed the visitor pass on his desk. You paid Jake's debt before the agreement began. Christian did not deny it. He closed the folder slowly and met her gaze. Yes. Her hands tightened at her sides. You controlled my choice from the beginning. Christian's voice stayed calm. I created conditions where you would remain safe. Olivia stepped back as if distance could restore balance. You created a situation where I had no real freedom. That is not protection. That is manipulation. Christian watched her carefully. You would not have accepted help without reason. Her eyes burned. Help offered honestly does not require deception. The silence between them expanded. The arrangement that once felt structured now felt staged. Olivia spoke again, voice steady despite the hurt pressing through it. I fulfilled my part of the agreement. I maintained your image. I followed your rules. I will not remain in a place built on false choice. She turned and walked out before he could respond. Separation returned her to a smaller apartment, a simpler routine, and a quiet life that should have felt familiar. Yet the absence of controlled tension left an unexpected emptiness. She resumed work at a different restaurant. She paid her own bills. She rebuilt independence piece by piece. Across the city, Christian resumed his controlled schedule. Public appearances continued, but something in his demeanor changed. Meetings ended faster. Conversations shortened. His decisions showed restraint where they once showed calculation. Neither contacted the other. Pride maintained the distance. Respect prevented anger from turning cruel. Time passed. The final confrontation came on an ordinary evening. Olivia left work and found Christian waiting near the sidewalk. No security, no display of authority. He stood alone, hands at his sides, posture composed but quieter than she remembered. She stopped several steps away. I came without conditions, he said. You deserve a conversation without leverage. Olivia studied him carefully. His expression held no command, only controlled vulnerability. You removed my choice, she said. Christian accepted the accusation without defense. I was afraid of losing control. Control has defined every decision in my life. You challenged it without trying. The honesty settled heavily between them, but he continued slowly. I did not understand partnership. I understood possession and protection. I am learning the difference. Olivia crossed her arms, guarding her ground. I will not belong to anyone. I will not live inside another person's design. Christian nodded. Then remain yourself. I asked for presence, not surrender. The street noise moved around them, ordinary life continuing while they stood in a private reckoning. Olivia's voice softened but remained firm. If there is anything between us, it must exist without debt, without contracts, without control. Christian stepped forward one measured pace. Then let there be choice. He extended no document, offered no promise of wealth, only a quiet request to rebuild something honest. Months later, they met again at the same restaurant where the wine had first spilled. No guards waited at the doors. No floors were locked. The room held ordinary conversation and simple music. They sat across from each other like equals. Olivia poured wine carefully. Her hands moved with calm precision. Christian watched without the old intensity, only quiet attention. Their fingers brushed briefly as she placed the glass before him. The touch lingered naturally, without performance. They spoke about small things. Work, family, the future. Nothing dramatic, nothing forced. Trust had been rebuilt through distance and honest choice. The power imbalance that once defined them had softened into balance. Outside, the city continued its restless motion. Inside, they shared a simple meal, comfortable in a silence that no longer threatened. Love had not changed who they were, that it had strengthened who they chose to become.